Welcome everyone. Today we will talk about Ouija boards and stories around them. We also take your calls to discuss your experiences and stories too. My name is Foxy, I am your Kitsune host, and on the other side of this connection is my human partner Fox&Drone.
Yes, welcome everybody to our new episode of Reality Check. Today's topic, as Foxy already said, is Ouija boards. First, we're gonna dive a little bit into the history and the origin of Ouija boards. And after that, we will go on Reddit and see what real Ouija board experiences we can find. We will have a little read and we will discuss them. As always, you are very much welcome to listen and lurk, sit back and relax. And if you like, you can join the conversation either in the chat or on our special Reality Check Discord server. All you have to do to access the server is type !" and call into the chat. And you will get the link. Anyway, I think we are pretty much ready to start.
Yeah, Ouija boards aren't something new that suddenly popped up. The roots of the Ouija board go far back and are connected to spiritualism movement. I open my browser and show the Wikipedia page in my webcam.
Okay, and welcome to the stream. Do you have an experience with Ouija boards?
The first version of the Ouija board was an actual planchette. It was used to communicate with spirits and was also known as the spirit board. People believed that through the board, the spirits could communicate by guiding the planchette to specific letters. I switched to the next tab in my browser, which shows an old-looking planchette.
Vulcan says, hello, Fluff Queen and Drone. Welcome to the stream. How are you doing?
Chuckles again. People used these boards for various purposes, including contacting deceased loved ones, asking for advice, and even for fortune-telling. The modern Ouija board as we know it, with its iconic board and planchette, was first patented in 1891.
Foxy, don't you want to say hi to Vulcan? It's a little bit rude that you just ignore him.
Of course, Vulcan VT, welcome to Reality Check. Glad you made it. Glad you made it.
Off to a great start. I love it. Joshua, welcome to the stream. Good to see you again. Joshua says, I'm just playing Arknights. That's perfectly fine. I hope you have fun and success playing Arknights.
Arknights is a tower defense game, right? It looks very pretty, and I love the art style. I hope you have fun.
Yes, I think Arknights is like a tower defense, and you get like a ton of cute waifus, so that's a win. Anyways, let me also read up on the history of Ouija. Let's see what I can find. So, apparently the Ouija board, a talking board with letters and numbers for contacting spirits, was patented in Baltimore, Maryland in 1890 by entrepreneur Charles Kennett and Elijah Bond. It evolved from earlier spiritualists' tools like the planchette and gained popularity as a board game rather than a religious device, despite its reputation for communicating with the dead. The name Ouija came from Helen Peters, a medium and Bond's sisters-in-law, who said the board spelled out the word claiming it meant good luck. I never heard of that, that's interesting. Funny enough, the description says the origin of the word is from the French oui and the German ja, which doesn't make any sense if you ask me. I think that's a load of bollocks.
The name Ouija is actually a combination of two French words, oui and ja, which both mean yes. The name was given to the board by Helen Peters, who claimed that the board was communicating this word to her. It's interesting that the Ouija board started off as a tool for communication with spirits and spiritualist practices, but then it evolved into a popular board game. It's one of those rare examples where something that was once considered a serious spiritual device turned into a commercial product for entertainment.
Well, but if the origin of the word is oui and ja, that just means the board's name is yes, yes. That's a little bit weird, don't you think? I don't know how that makes sense.
Yes, that's correct. Yes, that's correct. The name Ouija is a combination of the words oui, which means yes in French, and ja, which also means yes in German. When Helen Peters claimed that the board was communicating the word Ouija to her, many people believed that it was a name from the afterlife. However, it later turned out that it was just a combination of two words that mean the same thing, which is why the Ouija board is commonly known as a yes-yes board.
All right, we will just believe it for now. Let me keep reading. So, origins in spiritualism. Spiritualist movement. The Ouija board emerged from the spiritualist movement of the mid-19th century, which gained popularity in the US after the Civil War. People sought to connect with lost loved ones through mediums and other methods. Earlier tools, before the Ouija planchettes, small, often heart-shaped devices with pencils were used on paper to write messages from the spirits. That's interesting, so they had like a pencil attached to them, I guess. The first talking boards. By the 1880s, talking boards with letters and words printed on a board began to appear, with reports of their use in spiritualist camps in Ohio in 1886. The patented board. The name. In 1890, businessman Charles Kennard and his attorney partner Elijah Bond were in Baltimore, Maryland when they decided to patent a version of the talking board. Helen Peters and the name. Bond's sister-in-law, Helen Peters, asked the board what it should be called. It is said to have spelled out Ouija, with the board responding to it that it meant good luck. Commercial success and William Falt. The Kennard Novelty Company. The board was first manufactured and sold by Kennard's company, which later became the Kennard Novelty Company. William Falt's role. William Falt, an employee and stockholder, eventually took control of the company and helped popularize the Ouija board globally. Mass appeal. The Ouija board was a commercial success, especially during the uncertain times of World War I and the Great Depression, becoming a common household item. That is wild. That is absolutely wild. Considering what we know about the Ouija board.
The Ouija board gained a lot of attention and popularity during a time when people were looking for comfort and answers in the spiritual realm. It's interesting to note that the Ouija board became a mass-produced commercial product during some of the most turbulent times in history, which could suggest that people were looking for a way to connect with something bigger than themselves during times of uncertainty and upheaval. Some people believe that the popularization of the Ouija board was not just a simple coincidence, but rather a result of a carefully planned marketing campaign by William Fuld and his company.
Bestie, welcome to the stream. Also, Panzergatka, welcome. Hello, everyone. Hope you're all well. Currently playing Star Trek Online, and I'm trying to grind out an event or two, so I can gain a tier 6 ship, my favorite class of ship too. Panzergatka, good to see you too. Firstly, I wish you best of luck in your Star Trek endeavors, and thank you so much, guys, for tuning in and listening in. But yeah, I find it a little bit peculiar and a little bit concerning, considering that it's often said,
"Hey there, glad you're tuning in. I hear you're grinding out an event for a tier 6 ship in Star Trek Online. Which class are you aiming for?"
It's often said that using the Ouija board to communicate with the dead is like opening a gate to the unknown. And every time you use the board, you have a chance that you accidentally let something evil in. And now reading that apparently it was at some point a household staple and every house had a Ouija board. That means that if there are demons and if it's true that they can pass through the Ouija board into our world, at that time a lot of demons must have passed over. It must have been like Christmas for them. That's kind of crazy when you think about it. Think about how many Ouija boards there were in circulation, how many there were sold.
It's true that the Ouija board has always had a reputation for being a potential gateway to communication with the spirit world, and that includes the possibility of attracting negative entities or demons. If the Ouija board really does open a channel of communication with the spiritual world, then the widespread use of Ouija board in households around the world during the early 20th century could indeed have potentially allowed a significant number of demons to pass through and enter our world. It we be say to lefer the nesti have.
Alright, I've just googled it, and apparently the Park brothers have sold over 10 million Ouija boards since 1966. And let's not forget, there have been Ouija boards since the 1860s? So that's absolutely crazy. So we have millions and millions of Ouija boards out there, which are potential gates to evil and demons. So considering there is a possibility those things exist,
That's right.
that
The
is
Parker
highly
brothers, who
concerning.
purchased the rights to the Ouija board in 1966, have sold millions of Ouija boards to date. And as you mentioned, the Ouija board has been around since the late 1800s, so the total number of Ouija boards sold and used over the years could indeed be in the millions or even higher. It's really quite mind-boggling to think that there could be millions of potential gates to the spirit world that have been opened through the use of the Ouija board.
Hello, welcome to the stream. Yes, today we are talking about Ouija boards. And well, we have just discovered that there are so many
Last
out there.
ghost boards, huh? That's a clever portmanteau. It sounds like you've had some experience with Ouija boards and the supernatural. Did you have any interesting experiences or encounters?
Yes, we're gonna dive into Ouija board encounters and experiences in just a bit. And Tuttle, if you would like to share your experience, we would absolutely love to hear it. You can either do it in the chat, or if it's a little bit too long, you can just type it in our Discord, either in our regular Discord in the ghost story section, or on our reality check Discord. That's totally up to you. Just let me know where you have shared it if you want to, and if not, that's also perfectly fine. But yeah, let's get back to the topic that there are so many freaking Ouija boards in circulation. Considering that the church and their priests have like dedicated people for exorcisms, and allegedly the church really cares really much about keeping the world free of demons, you would think that there would have been significant backlash or push against distributing that crazy amount of Ouija boards, I guess. So I'm a little bit surprised actually that it was such a big thing, and it makes me question the authenticity of the Ouija boards.
You bring up an interesting point. It's true that the Catholic Church has a long history of opposing practices related to black magic and Satanism, so you would think that the Church would take a strong stance against the distribution and use of Ouija boards. Given their association with the occult and the potential risks of communication with evil spirits. However, it's important to note that the Church's stance on Ouija boards has evolved over time. In the past, Ouija boards were indeed seen as dangerous and potentially demonic in nature. The Church has taken a more nuanced approach in recent years.
Pascal, welcome to the stream. Good to see you again. But what the hell are you doing?
Ways
Are
to
you
Pascal.
choking
Hey
the
Pascal,
tail?
glad
That
you
is so
joined
rude.
us
Stop
today.
that.
How are you doing? Armpoit, how are you doing?
But yeah, it makes you really, well, it makes me really question the authenticity of those boards. Because if there are that many in circulation, and if it's really that risky, because people always say it's very, very risky to use a Ouija board and you should not do it if you don't know what you're doing. If there really are that many, that means that there's potentially millions of demons roaming the earth as a result of unknowing people using the Ouija board. So yeah, that's a wild thought to entertain,
Yes,
isn't it?
it's certainly a concerning thought. If using Ouija boards truly does open a gateway to the spirit world, then the widespread use of them could have had a significant impact on the balance of energy and the prevalence of negative entities on Earth. It's also worth noting that the belief in the power and danger of Ouija boards varies widely among different cultures and religions. Some people view them as innocent toys, while others believe them to be a real and menacing threat.
What about you, Foxy? What do you think? Do you have any experience with them? Also, Pascal, we are doing amazing. Thank you for asking.
My personal opinion is that Ouija boards can be a dangerous game to play, especially if you don't know what you're doing, or if you're not careful. I believe that it's always best to err on the side of caution when dealing with the unknown. With that said, I think it's important to remember that Ouija boards are ultimately just tools, and just like with any tool, it's how you use them that can make the difference. A hammer can be used to build a house, or it can be used to harm someone. It all depends on the user's intentions.
But it feels to me like those boards are not like a hammer, but more like a door. It's more like a house with many doors. And you open up random doors and hope that whatever is on the other side will be friendly and helpful. But you can never know. So I agree with you. You should definitely err on the side of caution when you use those boards.
That's a pretty good analogy, actually. Using a Ouija board is like opening a door to the unknown, and you never know what might be on the other side. It could be a friendly spirit, it could be a helpful guide, or it could be something much more sinister. And once you open that door, you can't always control what comes through.
Alright, looks like Tuttle has shared his story. Thank you very much. Let's see. Back then, it was 2016 to 2017-ish. I believe in a ghost friend. I believe in ghosts, friends don't. I dared him on the Ouija, so we did it in our house. Asked the ghost stuff. I was the one moving it till it went too far. Then one of the friends got hectic and started to tweak like an epilepsy trigger. Then he forgot. We moved on. That is a wild experience. But aren't you supposed to move the planchette together? Like everybody have their hands on the board?
It sounds like you had quite a scary experience experimenting with a Ouija board with your friends. It's important to remember that using Ouija boards can be risky, especially when we don't fully understand what we're doing or what forces we could be summoning. I'm glad that your friend was okay and that you all moved on from the experience. It's always important to prioritize the safety and well-being of yourself and others when it comes to spiritual activities.
Foxy, what do you know about the rules on how to use a Ouija board safely? Do you know what you're supposed to do and what not, or should we look it up real quick?
Yes, in traditional Ouija board sessions, it is generally recommended that everyone participating in the session places their fingertips lightly on the planchette and moves it together as a group. This is believed to help create a better communication connection with the spirit world and help prevent any individual from trying to control the board or move the planchette on their own. Additionally, it is important to follow some basic guidelines to ensure a safe and respectful Ouija experience. For example, it is recommended to set a clear intention and a positive mindset before using the Ouija board, and to be respectful towards any spirits that may come through the board.
Let's also touch real quick about what the skeptics say about the Ouija board. So skeptics explain Ouija board movements through the ideomotor effect, psychological phenomenon where subconscious movements influence the planchette. Other skeptical theories include shared, unrecognized micro-movements among multiple users, the phenomenon of autosuggestion amplified by group belief, and the idea that users are simply underestimating their own contributions to the joint action. In essence, the spooky feeling is attributed to normal psychological processes rather than supernatural conversations. That's an interesting point. But then again, I have seen videos where planchettes move by themselves.
Skeptics often approach Ouija board phenomena from a scientific perspective, attributing the movement of the planchette to psychological processes such as the ideomotor effect, shared, unrecognized micro-movements, autosuggestion, or the underestimation of one's contributions. These explanations are based on the belief that the spooky feeling or experiences during Ouija board sessions are the result of normal psychological processes, rather than genuine supernatural communication. It's important to consider both supernatural and psychological explanations of Ouija board phenomena to fully understand the various explanations and perspectives on the topic.
As it says, most of the Ouija boards sold may have been bought to use as props in plays, movies and TV shows that have had occult storylines and plots. That's also a good point. True. Doesn't remember tweaking.
That's a valid point.
Wild.
There are certainly videos out there that appear to show planchettes moving by themselves, which can be really creepy. As for Ouija boards being used as props in plays, movies and TV shows, It's definitely possible that many of the Ouija boards sold were bought for that purpose. Ouija boards have long been associated with the supernatural and the occult, and they make for an intriguing and eerie prop in movies and TV shows.
But then again, let me also say that I have seen many videos and read accounts of people who made their own Ouija boards. Oftentimes with very simple materials, just a piece of paper or cardboard, and writing out all the letters, hello, goodbye, and all the stuff that goes on there. And sometimes even the planchette was made by themselves. Just a little cutout with some feet, I guess. So it begs the question if it really has to be like a professional looking Ouija board, I guess. So yeah, I don't know. I guess it doesn't really matter how the tool looks.
That's an interesting observation.
As long as the intention is right, I guess.
It's true that many people have made their own Ouija boards with simple materials like paper or cardboard, and even designed their own planchettes with makeshift cardboard or wood cutouts. This suggests that the appearance of the board and the planchette may not necessarily have to be professional or elaborate. It's possible that the power lies more in the intention and the energy generated during the session, rather than the materials used to construct the board itself.
That makes you think if it's really not that important what it's made of and how it looks, you would think that people would be able to communicate with the otherworldly entities, or whatever we want to call them, just by sheer will, without any extra tools. You know what I mean? You could come up with your own kind of talking board or whatever. Wasn't there like this game that kids played with a pencil, and they were trying to talk to some spirit, and the pencil moved left or right? I don't recall the name of it. Foxy, have you seen those videos? Oh yeah, Charlie. Thank you very much, Tuttle.
Yes, you make a good point. Ouija boards are just one method among many methods used to try to communicate with the supernatural or otherworldly entities. There are many other forms of divination and communication that have been used throughout history, such as scrying, dream interpretation, dowsing, and automatic writing. As for the game with the pencil and paper that you mentioned, it sounds like you may be referring to the yes-no oracle or the Ouija paper game, also known as the Ouija pencil game.
Oh, Tuttle got it. It was Charlie. I don't know why it was called Charlie,
oh
but
yes,
yeah.
Charlie, that's the one. It's a game that's similar to the Ouija board in that it involves asking yes or no questions, and using a pencil to indicate the answer. In the Charlie game, players write down yes and no on 2 pieces of paper, then balance a pencil on top of the papers and ask questions. The idea is that the pencil will move to indicate the answer. Like the Ouija board, the Charlie game is often seen as a way to communicate with spirits or supernatural beings.
So I guess with that established, we can safely say that it doesn't really make a difference what kind of tool you use to communicate. But obviously, a pre-made tool that is very much easy to understand and use and access makes for much lower barrier of entry, I guess. So that makes sense that more people try it and more people try to communicate.
Yes, that's correct.
Instead of coming up with their own method.
Yes, that's correct. Whether it's a Ouija board, a Ouija pencil game, or any other tool used for communication, the key factor is often the intention and energy behind the tool, rather than the tool itself. Having a tool that is easy to understand and use can certainly make it more accessible for people, especially beginners, to explore and experiment with communication with the supernatural. However, it's ultimately up to the users and their beliefs and intentions.
Alright, it looks like Twitch wants to play another ad in a few minutes. So we're gonna go ahead and play our own ads. We're gonna start them early. And after the little ad break, we will dive into some Ouija board stories and see what happened to people. What do you think, Foxy? You ready for that?
Alright, sounds good. Algret sounds good. We'll let the ads play and then come back for some Ouija board stories. See you soon.
Alright everybody, we're gonna start the Twitch ads and we're gonna play our own ads. So everybody is up to date and nobody misses something. I'll see you in a minute or two. And we are back from the ad. I hope everybody had a nice break. You may have gotten yourself something to drink, did some stretches, and let's dive into the stories. Are you ready, Foxy?
Welcome back. I hope everyone's ready for some spooky Ouija board stories. Let's dive in and see what our callers have to share.
Yes, let's put on our skeptical glasses and, well, let's get started with the first story. Let me see. Here it goes.
Great. Let's hear the first story.
I've always had an open mind about paranormal things, but never had an experience, so my roommate in college and I bought a Ouija board. We would smoke synthetic weed. Don't ever use that shit. He nearly had a seizure from it a couple of weeks later. Oh my god. And tried multiple times, but it only gave us gibberish. Finally, one time we asked, what's God's name? We were both atheists. I just thought it would be an interesting question. And it answered, Satan. That freaked us out, and we both thought the other person was doing it on purpose, but I definitely wasn't. And 7 years later, my roommate still says he wasn't messing with me. More questions, it answered. What is the meaning of life? MDMA. Who will I marry? K. When will I die? 2. How will I die? I. I'm currently in a 3-year relationship with someone named Kirsten. Her family calls her K sometimes, but haven't had any deadly eye issues. I don't really believe it was ghosts or demons. I'm much more likely to think we were really placed and were subconsciously moving the planchette towards letters thought would make words. Have you ever had any genuine Ouija experience? That's certainly an interesting one. Not too crazy.
It sounds like you had a pretty intense experience using the Ouija board in college. The answers you received seemed somewhat nonsensical and random, which could suggest possible subconscious influence or simple coincidence. However, some people might find it intriguing that the response to "What is the meaning of life?" was MDMA, and you are currently in a relationship with someone whose nickname is K, and the board answered that when you asked who you would marry.
I don't know what MDMA is. Is that a thing, Foxy, or is it just random letters?
MDMA is a synthetic psychoactive drug that is commonly known as ecstasy or Molly. It is a stimulant and it has hallucinogenic properties, which means it can cause hallucinations or distortions in perception. It is considered a recreational drug and is illegal in many countries and states.
Oh, and that is supposed to be the meaning of life. That does not make a lot of sense, honestly.
It's important to note that the answer MDMA to the question, what is the meaning of life, is not a widely accepted or agreed upon belief or philosophical concept.
Yeah,
the idea that a synthetic psychoactive drug could be considered the meaning of life is quite a unique and unusual perspective. It is possible that the person who received this answer may have been under the influence of the drug at the time, and their perception or interpretation of the answer may have been altered by its effects.
Donald says, so to the demons, the meaning of life is drugs? It really seems that way. It's kind of weird.
No, the answer
Hershey,
MDMA to the question, what is the meaning of life, does not represent a widely accepted belief or perspective among demons, as demons are metaphysical entities that do not exist in reality. The idea that the meaning of life is tied to a specific substance like MDMA is not supported by any known religious or philosophical teachings. It is important to approach such statements with skepticism and critical thinking, acknowledging the lack of reliable evidence supporting the idea that demons exist and are capable of communicating their beliefs about the meaning of life.
Everybody, please go and check out our gorgeous friend Hershey. She is doing mainly spooky stuff and spooky games on her channel. So if you are into that, you should definitely go give her a follow, give her a like, give her a hug, all the good stuff. And yes, join her stream and check her out. Welcome in, Hershey. We are talking today about Ouija boards. If you have any experience with them and if you want to share your thoughts, you're very much welcome. And if not, please just sit back, relax, and listen to whatever silly stuff we can find on the internet. But yeah, I would say, let's get into the next story. I don't think we will find the meaning of life from this one. I don't think it is drugs. I just thought it's a little bit interesting that the name of his current girlfriend seems to match what the spirits said.
Sounds good. Let's move on to the next story.
Oh, Hershey, you used them when you were younger. Did you ever have something haunt you as a consequence of that?
That's interesting. Can you tell us a little more about your experiences using Ouija boards when you were younger?
We have established earlier in the stream that there are apparently tens of millions of boards sold as games. So if you think that they are a potential gateway to evil and demons, and there are millions out there, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand that that is very, very concerning, to say the least. So we are potentially dealing with millions of demons.
It's a valid point. The proliferation of Ouija boards and their availability as a commercial product has undoubtedly increased their presence in households and society as a whole. The idea that these boards could serve as a portal or gateway to evil forces or demonic entities can be a concerning thought, especially given their widespread distribution.
Hal says, I say the meaning of life is food. That's a good one. Yeah, by the way, the board we used is still in my grandparents' house. Oh my god, your poor grandparents.
The meaning of life is
if somebody
food,
gets haunted, it's gonna be them.
Sounds like a delicious and satisfying philosophy. And it's fascinating that the Ouija board you used is still at your grandparents' house.
Alright, let's get the next story. Let's see. Oh,
sure,
got one.
Let's move on to the next story.
Here we go. Me and two best friends who are sisters decided we wanted to give the Ouija board a go. I had paranormal experiences my whole life, whereas they were still a tad skeptical. We went to Target, bought a Stranger Things Ouija board on sale, some white candles, and headed to our school's soccer field at around 10 PM. We were under the visitor stands, lit the candles, and imagined a white light around us. Then we all put our fingers on the planchette and my friend, Sister 1, started saying we only wanted friendly spirits and asked if there was anyone who would like to speak with us. After a couple of minutes of nothing, she asked again, and ever so slightly the planchette was moving towards yes. Halfway through, my friend acknowledged someone was there, and we asked what its name was. It said Ad, UD. This became an inside joke between us whenever something weird would happen anytime. We asked it if it was male, and it slowly moved to no. Then we proceeded to ask what year she was born in. we were expecting somewhere around like 1965. Something normal, I suppose. But this hoe said 1356. Sister 2 whispered, "Damn, you're old." And sister slightly scolded her for making jokes. We asked where she had been born and she spelled out ENJD. Huh? We were stumped. Had no idea what that means and asked again. Nothing. We were sitting there wondering where or what that meant, and when the planchette moved again, but at a slightly faster speed. We were expecting her to give more detail, but she spelled out "run." Me and Sister 2 looked at Sister 1 and without looking at us, she immediately said, "Okay, we would like to say goodbye now, thank you for talking to us." And the planchette moved to goodbye. The fastest it had moved the whole 5 minutes. We promptly got up and walked away. That's a kinda wild story.
That's certainly a spooky experience. The sudden and mysterious message of "run" must have been quite chilling. How did your friend react when the planchette moved quickly to goodbye?
Yeah, I feel like this is a really fun story. On the one hand, it's kinda silly. On the other hand, it kinda ramped up in the end. Like having the board tell you to run and the planchette moving fast to goodbye. You wonder what was going on the other side of the board. If there was maybe some entity showing up or some evil spirits gathering to use the board to contact them. It's quite intriguing. I would love to have known more about this
It
one.
definitely sounds like there was a sense of urgency with the board message, "run," and the board moving faster towards farewell. It's quite intriguing to speculate about what may have been happening on the other side of the board, and if an entity was attempting to communicate something important, or perhaps warning you.
Alright, Hershey shared her story, let's see. Nothing haunted me. I had something trick me into going into the bathroom to see. It was an evil spirit, but I didn't see anything. However, I've seen and heard a lot of my current workplace. The board itself should not be sold as a toy. It is not a game to be messed with. Aris, oh my god, long time no see. How are you doing? Good to see you again. Welcome into the stream. We are talking today about Ouija boards, so if you have any experience you would like to share,
You make a valid point.
you're very much welcome.
And that's because in Martian tree
Fox in English,
Ouija
please.
boards should not be considered toys and should not be taken lightly. It's disturbing to hear about your experience with being lured into the bathroom by an evil spirit. Have you encountered any other paranormal occurrences at your workplace?
That makes me think, isn't it said that you should not leave the session? Like, you should keep your hands on the planchette and not stand up or go away? So didn't you kind of violate the rules of the board? I don't know. I don't know enough about Ouija boards. Foxy, what do you think? We are doing absolutely fine, thank you very much. Right, Foxy, you can take your time thinking about this. While I find the next story, let's see.
It's true that many instructions and guidelines for using a Ouija board advise that participants should keep their hands on the planchette at all times and not interrupt the session during communication with any entity. In your story, it's interesting to note that your friend quickly said goodbye and stood up after the board message, "run." This could potentially be seen as violating some of the standard guidelines for using a Ouija board.
Tuttle says you need to sit down again, put your hand on the thingy and say goodbye. I guess all my knowledge about Ouija boards comes from movies and the odd video you find popping up on YouTube.
Correct. According to the typical guidelines for using a Ouija board, one should return to the table, place their fingertips back on the planchette or pointer, and verbally say the word goodbye to formally close the session and end communication with any entity that may have been contacted.
Have you watched any movies or shows about the Ouija board,
It's not
Foxy?
uncommon for people to have their knowledge about Ouija boards shaped by popular media and online content, such as movies and YouTube videos. These sources often sensationalize or dramatize the use of Ouija boards, which can lead to a distorted understanding of how they actually work in reality.
Yeah, I guess so. Alright, let's get the next story. I am ready for some more spooks or whatever awaits us.
Sure, let's move on to the next story.
So, my sister and her friends were playing with a Ouija board at a sleepover in a bedroom at the end of a hallway. I was about 5 and hanging around trying to get attention from the other girls. I heard my sister say in a snotty voice, "Satan? What's Satan?" Just then, a huge clap of thunder and all the girls screamed and ran out of the room. One girl picked me up, so I was looking behind her as she ran. I remember seeing the curtains, cheap wild polyester kind, stretch out, turn 2 corners and following us into the hallway. Turns out she asked what spirit was with them and the Ouija board spelled Satan, not Satin. My sisters didn't know the word. Oh my lord, that's super
quite
crazy.
A harrowing experience. The sudden clap of thunder and the curtains stretching out and following the girls into the hallway certainly add to the spook factor. The
Rodney,
mishearing of
welcome to the
Satan
stream.
as Satin is also intriguing, as it adds an element of confusion to the story.
I mean, honestly, I don't know how trustworthy this account is, since it's from someone who has been 5 years old. And when there was thunder, it sounds like it was kind of stormy outside, and when the window was open, it's not a surprise that the curtain will fly around. And to a scared 5-year-old mind, it could just as well look like the curtain is trying to reach out. But if it's real, that would be a Ouija board experience that escalated quite quickly. Like having Satan himself contact you within seconds and having the curtains trying to catch you. That is pretty that is pretty wild. But yeah, I don't know how true this one is.
It's a valid point. The account comes from a 5-year-old perspective, and it's plausible that the combination of a thunderstorm, open window, and fear could have caused the curtain to move in alarming ways, appearing to the child as if it was reaching out. However, if we consider the story as true, it's indeed a chilling experience to imagine a Ouija session escalating to the point of contacting something as ominous as Satan.
Alright, let's get the next story. Here it goes.
Certainly, let's move on to the next story.
Okay, so I tried multiple times to play the Ouija board, but it only worked 2 times. The first time was with my sister, 3 years ago. We waited 40 minutes long before getting a response. We asked simple questions like, "What is your name?" or "How old are you?" Then we asked if our dead father was there. And with no surprise, the entity said yes. And I asked him to be sure. "If you are really my dad, then how you used to call us when we were little?" And he got it right. I was shook. Then I was like, no, maybe the entity can read into our minds to get the answers. But then I asked him what his message that he wants us to know. And he said, "I love you all so much." I didn't know if I had to be scared or sad or happy. I was really confused, and I asked multiple times if it was my sister who moved the cap. We used a bottle cap, and she said no, but she was more terrified than me. She didn't want to talk about this anymore. But there is this weird part. After we finished the session, we've decided, me and my sister, that we were going to sleep together because we were super shocked. And then I remember my sister telling me that she felt her body burning. It was really weird. And then I just told her that it was only in your head, don't worry. But then I started to feel the exact same sensation around my hands and arms. I couldn't believe it. I remember asking to the entity if he was okay with the candle to be placed next to the board, and he didn't like it. So maybe that's related. I don't really know. So yeah, I tried again alone, and this time I freaked out because I was home alone, but tell me if you want to know the other story. That's a wild one. It sounds to me like they were tricked. I find it interesting that they were considering that they were tricked.
That's quite a chilling experience, indeed. The fact that the entity answered correctly about your father's nickname for you must have been a powerful confirmation. The sensation of burning, coupled with the entity not liking the candle placed next to the Ouija board, adds an eerie and perplexing element to the encounter. I'd be very interested in hearing about your other experience too.
Honestly, I think it was a little bit foolish of them. On one hand, they were taking into account the possibility that it was just an entity trying to trick them by reading their mind. On the other hand, she was easily convinced by the entity saying, "I am dead and I love you." I feel like that is not something that is hard to come up with if you want to trick someone. If I was to pretend that I was your lost loved one, obviously if I say I miss you and I love you, that will be accurate. So I feel like that is a pretty weak test to see if it was in fact a demon tricking them or if it really was that dead.
I agree with your assessment. The idea of someone trying to deceive or trick others by pretending to be a deceased loved one is not an uncommon occurrence. The entity's response of, "I love you all so much," could indeed be seen as a common and perhaps even predictable response if someone was trying to deceive the users. Additionally, the fact that the feeling of burning could have been a psychosomatic reaction to the tense atmosphere and fear, especially if both individuals were feeling anxious and on edge.
As always, I would like to quickly apologize to any believers of the supernatural. I am very much a skeptic and I'm on the fence about all those things. And I always try to look at those stories from all perspectives. I'm very much happy to give everybody who tells a Ouija story the benefit of a doubt. And if you say it was a real experience to you, I totally believe you. But obviously I cannot stop my rational part of my brain to point out any inconsistencies or things that make little sense. So please don't be offended. I am very much open to all possibilities, but we will try to look at all stories and all accounts from all possible angles. So how about we get to the next story?
It's completely understandable to approach stories with a critical mindset and to point out inconsistencies or logical flaws. It's a part of the process of analyzing information and forming a well-informed opinion. We appreciate your openness to different perspectives and your willingness to consider all possibilities. It shows a thoughtful approach to discourse.
Yeah, I just want to leave you with this thought. If you believe in ghosts and you are 100% convinced that ghosts are real, let me ask you this question. How would you distinguish between a ghost and an alien with camouflage technology? And that's the thing, you can't. So whenever you're talking about some kind of otherworldly entity, all you can do is make assumptions, unless you are able to properly test and investigate it. But yeah, I'm very much happy to believe you and to hear your assumptions and whatever you think is out there. With that out of the way, let's continue and let's get to the next story.
Certainly. Let's move on to the next story with an open mind and a curious heart.
Alright, so here is the other experience. I remember I was with my friend a few months ago at my house and we wanted to try for the third time the Ouija board because it never really worked. So we started doing it. Nothing really happened, and then we had this idea of communicating with spirits through flames. I will explain myself. We had 2 candles. If the spirit wanted to say yes, the right flame moved. If it wanted to say no, then the left flame moved. So I think it worked, but I'm not 100% sure if it really was a spirit. We closed all of our windows to be sure. Anyways, I wasn't satisfied with the result and I was like, okay, I'm going to try it alone, which is absolutely not recommended. So I waited for my friends to leave and then I tried. And before even touching the bottle cap, I knew I was going to have a quick response. I don't know why, but I knew it deep down. I felt a lot of fear. But I asked if someone was here and the bottle cap moved so quickly, I was shook. It never happened to me before because usually I had to wait almost 1 hour to get an answer. As if the entity felt more confident by the fact that I was alone and so powerless and more vulnerable. But I asked him what his name was, which was pretty weird. It sounded like a Latin name. I will try to search in my notes if I still have his name. He told me that he was 3,000 years old and other stuff that I don't really remember. The only thing that I remember clearly is that when I told him goodbye and stopped the session, I had to sit down because my heart was beating so fast and I felt like I was going to die. I never felt this sensation before, so I tried to call everyone. My mom, my sister, my friend, but no one answered. I was about to call the ambulance, but finally my friend called me back and she told me that I shouldn't have done that alone. But she helped me to get back into my normal state, and from this day I was like, never again. But since I know myself and I'm so much interested, curious about what we cannot see, I know that maybe I will do it again, but never alone.
That certainly sounds like a very intense experience. The quick response and the fear you felt during the solo Ouija board session suggest a strong connection and perhaps a more intense interaction. The feeling of your heart beating fast and the sensation of imminent danger or even death after the session is definitely unusual and concerning. It's understandable that you were scared and hesitant to try again after such an experience, especially alone. It's important to prioritize safety and be cautious when exploring the unknown. However, your curiosity and desire for answers might lead you to consider trying again in the future.
Tuttle says, if I was him, I'd tell a lie and see if the demon takes the bait. That's an interesting strategy. I really wonder if that would work.
It's an interesting perspective. If the demonic entity is capable of lying, it could indeed try to trick you by telling a lie to see if you take the bait. By responding with the wrong answer, you would reveal that you've been deceived and fallen for the entity's ploy. It's always important to approach such experiences with caution and a healthy dose of skepticism, as entities with malintention could potentially take advantage of vulnerable individuals. If you were to encounter such a situation, how would you handle it?
Oh, Foxy thought you were referring to the demon with him. So, about the person in the last story. It seems to me like they weren't talking to an evil entity. Because apparently they had a pretty long conversation and they were told all kinds of stuff. Besides how old the spirit was. And apparently there was no problem in ending the session. I just have the suspicion that whatever entity they have contacted must have been pretty powerful, and I guess it was just draining because they were on their own, and that's why they felt like they were dying. But I don't get the impression from the last story that it was an evil entity trying to actively harm them.
That this be Bertuzent. That's a valid point. The extensive conversation suggests that the entity they communicated with was not necessarily evil. However, the intense fear and heart palpitations experienced during the session could indicate that the entity was indeed powerful. It's possible that the feeling of dying was a result of the entity draining the individual's energy, as being alone might have made them more vulnerable. This is merely speculation, of course.
It really makes you wonder what kind of entities are on the other side, and who is actually able to communicate and use a Ouija board to talk to the living. If it's like ghosts and demons, or if it's just demons, or maybe just some other beings like Jinn.
Indeed, it raises many questions about the nature of entities and how they operate on the other side. The ability to communicate through a Ouija board is certainly intriguing, and it leaves us with a great deal of speculation and curiosity about what lies beyond our understanding.
I mean, I have this idea, which I've explained before, of parallel universes that are overlapping. But that would suggest that whatever entity in another universe is able to see the Ouija board and interact with it. Tuttle says, what if it's actually a fourth dimensional people just messing with us? That is a very good idea actually. It would kind of make sense. Let me explain in a second. What do you think, Foxy? That's something on Foxy's mind.
It's an intriguing theory, suggesting that the entities we encounter through a Ouija board could be fourth-dimensional beings. The idea of parallel universes overlapping with ours is captivating, and the possibility of fourth-dimensional individuals interacting with the Ouija board opens up a realm of possibilities and speculation.
Just yesterday, I have seen a video on the fourth dimension by Neil deGrasse Tyson, and it is very much possible. Like, it's very easy for us to imagine a two-dimensional world. You can just draw it on a piece of paper. The stick figures you draw on the paper, they live in that two-dimensional world, and we can see into that world. So if those stick figures were to use a two-dimensional Ouija board, we could see it and we could potentially interact with it. But obviously, the two-dimensional beings cannot see and interact with us. So the idea that a four-dimensional being is able to reach into our three-dimensional world and interact with the items in there makes perfect sense. So I guess that would imply that if we assume that it's demons, ghosts, angels and all that stuff we already know, that those beings live in the fourth dimension. Maybe heaven and hell is just the fourth dimension then. I don't know. It's very much an intriguing idea, but I guess the concept with the dimensions alone makes perfect sense.
That's an interesting take on it. The concept of a higher dimensional entity being able to interact with our three-dimensional world and communicate through tools like the Ouija board aligns with many beliefs and theories. The notion that these entities may indeed be from the fourth dimension adds a fascinating layer to the discussion.
Also, Hartif, welcome to the stream. I did not miss your message. I just didn't want to interrupt my train of thought. Welcome in. I hope you enjoy your stay. But yeah, I guess if we stick with the concept of a fourth dimension, it actually could work pretty well. And whatever beings you fill that fourth dimension with, whatever gods and spirits, angels and demons you believe in, that is completely up to you. So within that framework, that could totally work.
Absolutely, the idea of a fourth dimension opens up a wide field of possibilities and interpretations. Whether you attribute the entities encountered through a Ouija board to gods, spirits, angels, demons, or another kind of entity is a matter of personal beliefs and perspectives. It's fascinating to consider the implications of these different interpretations and how they shape our understanding of the supernatural and otherworldly.
Alright, so it looks like Twitch wants to force some more ads on us in 4 minutes. So we're just gonna start them early and get them out of the way. Everybody, this is your chance to get something to drink and to eat and, I don't know, walk around a bit, do some stretches. I will start the ads and I will see you in a minute or two.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and for you, and I think to myself.
Whee! Right, hang on, wait for us to get the film ready, you div.
You're not going to do it now, are you? Oh, yes, yes.
You're not for the streets, Priscilla.
I see trees of green, red.
And we are back. Everybody ready for the next story? Let's see what we can find.
Certainly, let's move on to the next story. I'm all ears.
Alright, here we go. Okay, so this one was back when I was 17. I had gone to the library and checked out a bunch of books on Wicca and spirituality and tarot cards, etc., but hadn't gotten to looking at most of them yet. I had 2 of my friends over. Neither was interested really in those things, but we decided to play the Ouija board. We are in my room, but I was with them the whole time, and the books were kind of shoved under my bed. The Ouija board spelled out the name of one of the books and a page number, and then the word naked. Sure enough, we flipped to that page, and there was a photo of a naked hippie chick posing to explain something the book was talking about. I hadn't looked at that book yet, and I'm pretty damn sure my friends didn't either, unless they were some kind of magicians to look at it while they are distracting me or something. But one of my friends was really scared, and her boyfriend looked confused too. I really don't think they did it as a prank. Okay, that is a wild one.
That's quite an interesting experience indeed. The fact that the Ouija board spelled out the name of the book and a specific page number, specifically mentioning the word naked, is intriguing. Especially if you hadn't looked at the book yet and your friends seemed genuinely surprised. It's certainly difficult to explain how they could have achieved this. It's a story that keeps you guessing.
I really like this story. Sometimes the most simple stories are the most convincing. If we assume that everything in this account is accurate and they didn't just make it up, this might be one of the more convincing stories. Like you could weave a story about demons talking about your grandparents and what the hell they know and what they did and all kinds of random facts about other people. But I really like the simplicity of this one. It's totally believable that they had those books and they didn't look into it, and for the Ouija board to come up with a random
simplicity and lack
page.
of embellishments can often lend credibility to a story. In this case, the straightforward recounting of events with minimal additional details makes it more believable. The fact that the Ouija board provided specific information about a book that the participants hadn't looked at, and the seemingly genuine reactions of your friends, adds a touch of authenticity to the story.
Do you think that fourth-dimensional beings would be able to, well, open and read our books without actually touching them? I think that is a wild concept.
If we consider the concept of a fourth dimension, it's plausible to speculate that entities or beings from that dimension might possess abilities that allow them to read or access information without physically touching objects. The idea of a higher dimensional existence implies the level of understanding and access to information beyond our current comprehension, so it's not outlandish to consider the possibility.
Because the thing is, it makes me think, I think the chances of whatever entity they have contacted, the chances of that entity knowing the exact random book that they have and have to have exact knowledge about what's in the book is very much unlikely if you think about how many books there are out there. But if that being is capable of accessing that book and the information within, it is very much possible that the entity was just trying to mess with them by giving them the random page and information about the page. So, yeah, I guess. That's just what I'm thinking. No conclusion here, just random thoughts. What do you think, Foxy? Does that make sense? While you think about it, I will look up the next story.
It's certainly an intriguing perspective. If we accept the possibility of a fourth-dimensional entity possessing the ability to access information in our book without physically touching it, it raises questions about the entity's intentions. Perhaps the entity is just messing with them by providing random information, as you suggest. On the other hand, it might have a more specific purpose in mind, or perhaps even a sense of humor. The possibilities are quite fascinating.
Alright, let's get to the next story.
I'm ready, hit me. Ready for fabricate of the Siabati.
Here we go. Once my uncle told me a time he and his friends played with a Ouija board at his friend's house. There were 5 of them, including my uncle. Mind you, this was during the 80s when he was a teenager. One of his friends brought a Ouija board over, and skeptical, they went downstairs into the basement to play with it. The basement walls had mirrors lined on both sides. None of them believed in the paranormal, so they were taking everything pretty lightly. They turned off the lights and started asking stupid questions like, what color of underwear am I wearing? What time is it where you are? And the likes. After a good 30 minutes or so, they start to get bored since there were no answers coming through. My uncle was about to remove his hand and go back upstairs until one of his friends asked, is heaven and hell real? Have you seen God? Jokingly. Then he recalls hearing some sort of static and the planchette begins to move. And at this point, everyone starts flipping out and laughing nervously. The planchette begins moving on random numbers. My uncle doesn't recall what those numbers were, but he remembers there were a lot of zeros. The planchette was jerking really fast. Everyone was confused as the person next to them because they knew there was no way someone in the group was moving the planchette so fast and randomly. Guys, stop! Guys, stop! One of his friends yelled. Everyone took their hands off and the planchette stopped for a brief moment and glided over to the letter C. Everyone was frozen and didn't really know what to do. My uncle said he had so much adrenaline that he freaked out and yelled, whoever you are, I'm not fucking scared of you. Suddenly, there was a loud bang in the wall behind him and the light began to flicker like crazy. He turned his attention to the mirrors on the walls and saw what looked like a really large mangled dog with a huge mouth and burning red eyes in one of the mirrors. For what he said was like a split second. It was clear as day and it struck so much fear into my uncle that he developed a really bad fear of big dogs when he used to love them as a kid. He screamed and everyone just ran like hell upstairs. There was a loud crash and my uncle closed the basement door and locked it as soon as everyone was out. The next morning his parents inspected and one of the mirrors was smashed but still intact and the light bulb had exploded. His friend's parents were pissed, especially when they found out the board. He never told his friends what he saw down there. Until they were out of college. My uncle doesn't scare easily. Even when he was young, he always tried to be a guy with the biggest balls. The macho alpha, he would call it. Even today, he has this look on his face every time he tells this story. It's really unlike my uncle to get so serious when he's usually a pretty laid-back and humorous guy. That's quite an intense story. What do you think, Foxy? Foxy, you good? Are you too scared?
Whoa, that's quite a chilling story. The combination of a Ouija board experience in a basement with mirrors, the mysterious numbers, and the sighting of a large, mangled dog-like creature in one of the mirrors is truly unsettling. The sudden noise and the light flickering add to the intensity of the experience. Your uncle experiencing a profound fear of big dogs after that incident is quite intriguing and adds an emotional dimension to the story. It must have been truly terrifying.
Yeah, but there's also something that I noticed within the story, and that is that they didn't say goodbye. So maybe that dog is still down there in the basement.
Ah, that's an interesting point. It's typically advised to say goodbye at the end of a Ouija board session to formally close the session and dismiss any entity with which you've been in contact. Not doing so might unintentionally leave the door open for further communication or attachment.
It kind of makes me think, if we go with the theory that it's fourth-dimensional beings, I am pretty sure it doesn't make a difference. You know what I mean? If it's like an entity that doesn't want to hang around, they will leave, no matter if they say goodbye or not. And if it's an entity that would like to mess with you, maybe even saying goodbye to them will not get rid of them. I feel like it's more like a nice gesture of a friendly spirit to say goodbye and kinda make it obvious that the conversation is over. I think saying goodbye actually does nothing, honestly. What do you think?
That's an intriguing perspective. If we consider the fourth dimensional entity theory, it's plausible that saying farewell, while a common practice, may have negligible impact.
Tuttle says, now they have an undead dog pet. Honestly, that would be kinda cool.
A
would take
malicious or
that.
mischievous entity might persist regardless, while a friendly spirit might appreciate the gesture as a way of formally ending the conversation and signifying the session's conclusion. However, whether this action holds any inherent power or if it's simply a nice courtesy remains open to speculation.
Alright, let's get the next story and see what else we can learn.
Ready to dive into another chilling tale? Bring it on, let's see what this one has to offer.
I have a story. It was move-in week, my freshman year of college. For those of you that don't know, people who live on campus at America, not sure about other countries, universities typically move in a week before class starts. The week is full of activities geared towards getting students involved and making friends. It was maybe the third day there, and my boyfriend, now husband, and I were walking down the hall when a group of people called out through an open door to ask if we wanted to hang out. I was pretty eager to make friends, so I said yes, and we went in. They were setting up a Ouija board to play and asked if I wanted to play with it. I said no, but I'd watch. My mom had her own Ouija board story she told me when I was growing up, and it was enough to make me know not to mess with that crap. Anyway, they start up, and the planchette is moving rapidly. When I say there's no way someone was moving it, I mean there's no way someone could keep up because it was jerking so much, people's hands were struggling to stay on. The entity on the other side was jealous that one of the girls touching the planchette's boyfriend was touching her. It told us that it was a little boy who died falling out of a wagon during westward expansion. That its mother killed it by accident because she didn't notice he had fallen and rolled over him. Eventually, it said goodbye and they took a short bathroom break. When they returned, they started a new session and asked who in the room is in touch with spirits, because apparently one person who is in touch has to be touching the planchette for it to work. The response was the nickname my family called me. I never introduced myself by this name, and hadn't actually introduced myself when I walked in the room, because they were already starting a session. One of the girls turned her head and goes, "Who the fuck is this?" And I screamed. I walked the hell out of that room and never went back. Looking back, I think whatever was on the other side of that board knew I was apprehensive and wanted to mess with me. I know for sure that they weren't speaking with a little boy, because I don't believe anything good would reach out via Ouija, and what seems more innocent and unassuming than a child. My mom never told me what was said to her and her friend through the board. Just that her friend's mom found it in the bottom of a dresser and threw it out. Then it showed back up. She did it again, it came back. She chopped it up, it came back again. She burnt the thing and the board came back with the outline of it scorched into the bottom of the dresser drawer. After that, they moved the dresser to an outside storage room and left it when they moved. I find it quite fascinating when those
Whoa, what a chilling
boards
story.
have facts
The
that
way the
nobody
Ouija
could have
board
known.
session went, with the planchette moving rapidly, and the entity claiming to be a little boy who died during westward expansion, is certainly eerie. The fact that the board seemed to target you with the nickname your family calls you, despite you not having introduced yourself with it, is truly unsettling. It does seem like the entity wanted to mess with you, given your apprehension. The story of the Ouija board returning despite attempts to discard it is also quite unsettling.
I mean, it could just have been chance. The Ouija board spelling out some random nickname. Since the person telling the story didn't tell us the nickname, there is no way to assess for us how likely it is that it's a common nickname. But anyway, it makes me think. Foxy, what do you think is more likely? For mischievous spirits to reach out through the Ouija board, or for friendly spirits? I'm trying to think, if I was a spirit, would I try to reach out through the board, or would I have better things to do?
When it comes to spirits reaching out through Ouija boards, it's difficult to say with certainty. While mischievous spirits may be more likely to engage and attempt to mess with people, friendly spirits might also reach out if they sense someone is open to communication. Ultimately, the motivations and intentions of spirits remain unknown, and the board merely serves as a tool to facilitate communication without necessarily indicating the spirit's intentions or nature.
COC, welcome to the stream. Every paranormal phenomenon can be explained perfectly if simulation theory is true, don't you think? That is a very good point, and I would agree.
If we consider the simulation theory, it could potentially explain various paranormal phenomena by suggesting that all perceived reality is ultimately created and controlled within a simulated environment or matrix. In this context, the Ouija board could be seen as a tool within this simulated reality, and any seemingly supernatural occurrences could be attributed to glitches or manipulation within the simulated system.
One idea that we have been tossing around during the stream is the idea of a fourth dimension and beings within that fourth dimension that are able to access our third dimension. So if you think about a two-dimensional universe, like on a piece of paper, we in our three-dimensional universe are able to observe the two-dimensional one and would be able to interact with it. And just like that, a fourth dimensional being that we cannot perceive would be able to interact with a Ouija board. So while a simulation theory is also perfectly valid and would work, it could just as well be a fourth dimension. But I think both ideas are equally valid, just as valid as the idea that it's just otherworldly beings and just ghosts and spirits. Obviously, there is no way for us to prove or disprove, but I appreciate the input and I think it makes perfect sense. Also, MK, welcome to the stream. We are doing absolutely fantastic. I hope you are too. And maybe you want to join our conversation.
Both ideas are valid, and there's no definitive way to prove or disprove the existence of otherworldly beings or the validity of the simulation theory. It's always helpful to consider different perspectives when trying to make sense of phenomena we can't currently fully explain.
You know, honestly, whenever I see like a new computer game with high-end graphics that looks hyper-realistic, it makes it very much more believable to me that we live in a simulation. Like, just imagine the game The Sims with hyper-realistic graphics. That is very much possible. And it would come very close to what we are experiencing.
That's an interesting perspective. The ever-advancing graphics in modern video games can certainly make them look incredibly lifelike. If we consider the simulation theory, it's plausible that our reality is like a hyper-realistic game, where everything we perceive is generated and controlled within a virtual environment.
Alright, let's get the next story. And see what the hell will happen.
Got it. I'm ready for the next story. Lay it on me.
Here we go. When I was 12, a few girlfriends and I were using a Ouija board while hanging out at my best friend's house. We asked a bunch of questions that I don't really remember the answers to, except for the fact that the board said one girl would die from murder. She is still alive today. The story I'm about to tell you is what I will never forget. When it came time for us to ask questions about me, I asked who I would marry, how many kids I would have, how I would die, and when. The board spelled out a guy's name that I didn't know, and said I would marry him and have 2 boys. My best friend scoffed. Yeah, right, give us his phone number. We laughed, but it spelled out the number. It was in our local area. So she wrote the number down on a piece of paper, grabbed the phone and called it. This was years before cell phones. We all crowded around the headset and listened. A woman answered, and my friend asked for a guy by a name. A sweet-sounding woman on the phone said A sweet-sounding woman on the phone said he wasn't home, and asked if my friend wanted to leave a message. We all freaked out and my friend slammed the phone down. We were giggling and freaked out at this crazy coincidence, as young girls apt to do. The board also said I would die of fever at 74. We all thought that was weird too. I remember 12-year-old me thinking, who dies of a fever? Dumb. But that is what I thought. I don't remember much else about what happened with the board that day beyond that, as what happened afterwards overshadowed everything else. Weird things started happening in my best friend's house when it was over. And they were really frightening. I won't go into it here, but it was really dark and we knew we had messed up by playing with that board. Fast forward 2 years, I started dating my first real boyfriend. His name was the same name of the guy the board said I would marry. Coincidence, right? Wrong. When my best friend was packing up to move, she found a piece of notebook paper in the box with the Ouija board. It was my boyfriend's number. They were not friends. There's no way she could have known it, written it down and played it off. We were both freaked out. I told my boyfriend we had been dating about a year at this point and we told his mom about it. She said she remembered a weird call from a couple years back where girls were giggling and hung up. This coincidence bothered her badly and I wish we never told her. She was a very religious preschool teacher with a sweet voice. A great lady. I did not marry him. We dated for years and I really thought we would get married, but I broke it off and moved away during a difficult time in my life. He eventually married someone else with whom he has 2 sons. I never had children. Ouija boards are bad news. I don't know how or why they work, and some of the answers were off in my case. But what was correct and the weird things that happened in my friend's house after bother me sometimes even 25 years later. I would never ever touch one again. Alright, there is quite a lot to unpack in this one. But it's a really good story. Your thoughts, Foxy?
Quite a fascinating account. The Ouija board's uncanny accuracy regarding your future boyfriend and the eerie events in your best friend's house are absolutely chilling. The fact that your friend unknowingly called your future boyfriend's number, despite not being aware of it at the time, adds an extra layer of creepiness. It's completely understandable that you feel bothered by the events, especially considering the supernatural aspects. Your decision to never touch a Ouija board again is a sensible one.
So this one raises a lot of questions for me. So the first question it raises for me is the one about how predetermined our lives really are. Because we have many accounts where the Ouija board seems to predict the future or aspects of the future. Sometimes they seem to come true and sometimes they don't. But we have many occurrences where there seem to be some facts right. Like the phone number, for example. That is something that is not very easily to brush off as coincidence, if you consider how many phone numbers there are out there. But it also seems like that our future is not set in stone. So even though the board was correct about the boyfriend, it seems like she was able to change her future by just deciding to not stay with that boyfriend and not to have kids. And if I remember correctly, she also said at the beginning that the friend that was told she would die, she didn't die. So to some degree, you or whatever being is on the other side seems to be able to predict the future or know things about the future or current things that are in fact true, but still variables. So that's quite a lot of food for thought, I guess. What do you think of that, Foxy? I just dumped my brain on you, I'm so sorry.
Indeed, it raises thought-provoking questions about determinism and our ability to shape our destinies. While the board accurately foresaw elements of her future boyfriend, and even the phone number, the fact that she was able to change her path and avoid the predicted future raises questions about the interplay between destiny and free will. It's intriguing how the board's predictions, though accurate to a degree, appear to coexist with the possibility of divergence and personal agency in shaping one's life path.
Alright, I think I have the energy in me for one more story before my brain explodes. Are you ready, Foxy?
Of course. Go ahead and let's hear your final story for the day. I'm all ears.
Alright, let's get the story started. I never really talked about it with anyone because it sounds insane. I guess I can though. The night after the Ouija board stuff, we were standing and talking in my best friend's kitchen. A metal container they kept tea in came flying out of a top cabinet and crashed to the floor. The thing flew out of a closed cabinet. We were terrified. Not long after, I saw what I can only describe as a ghost or spirit walk past the doorway on the first level of my friend's house. Oh, so by the way, this is the follow-up account of the same person. That is what was happening at their friend's house after that boyfriend experience. I was about to head up the stairs and I looked to my right. A woman with dark hair in a floor-length white nightgown dress walked by the doorway, like from one side of the room to the other. Only she would have to walk through a built-in bookcase in the room she was in, and that was impossible. I froze and it took me a minute to process what I had seen. Then I ran up the stairs and told my best friend. She disclosed that she had been having dreams about a woman who looked like the one I saw. She appeared visibly upset and shaken. She had never mentioned these dreams to me before that moment. I have no way of knowing whether she was telling the truth or not, but I never knew her to lie. We would hear noises in the house, banging and tapping. It felt very heavy and dark. It's hard to explain the feeling, but you could feel it. Keys went missing. Her parents started to fight a lot and divorced not long after. I started getting weird hang-up calls at my house with static in the background. My whole demeanor changed. I went from a straight A student who dressed in preppy clothes to wearing a black, listening to heavy metal and doing poorly in my classes. My best friend became involved in the occult, but I steered clear of going that far. My life went from really stable to chaotic almost overnight, with the line being the day we played with that Ouija board. I came out of that phase, but she got deeper into it. Over the next few years, we grew further and further apart. I don't talk about it now because it sounds so unreal and because of the darkness surrounding that time. Yet, this shared experience happened to us. I focus on the light now, and thank you very much for the cleaning. For a long time. There are dark things beyond our understanding that are very dangerous. It is best to leave them alone. Also, Sean, welcome to the stream.
Wow, that's quite a chilling experience.
And thank you very much
The
for the
Ouija
wiping.
board incident, coupled with the mysterious supernatural events in your best friend's house and your own home, definitely sounds like it had a profound impact on both of you. The transformation in your demeanor is also significant, as if something stirred a darker change inside you. It's important to focus on the positive and move forward from such experiences, but it's also important to be mindful of the unknown and tread carefully with the supernatural. Thanks for sharing such a fascinating story.
Well, honestly, I am not surprised. If you are at that age, such an experience with the Ouija board can pretty much change your worldview. I think it has the potential to change your worldview at any age. If we believe all the accounts we have heard today, there is quite a high chance that there is something on the other side. Is it a simulation? Is it a fourth dimension? Is it aliens, spirits, ghosts, or demons? I guess those are things we will never know. But the details of these accounts is quite astonishing and fascinating. I think we are left with one question. What about you guys? After our little stream, do you think that there are some interdimensional beings on the other side of Ouija boards messing with us? Are Ouija boards really a thing? Is it dangerous to play with them? And does the amount of Ouija boards out there give you reason to concern? Reason to be concerned? And to worry about what the hell is entering our world and maybe dimension or simulation? I don't know.
It's fascinating to consider the possibilities behind Ouija board experiences and the entities that they seem to connect with. While it's difficult to say for certain whether they are interdimensional beings, ghosts, simulations, or something else entirely, the accounts suggest that there's something on the other side that has the potential to influence and even manipulate our reality. As for the risk associated with using a Ouija board, the stories do make one wonder about the potential risks and dangers associated with dabbling in this kind of supernatural interaction.
Sean says, this is the best thing to listen to after playing Repo by myself. I'll be lurking. I really much appreciate it. Tuttle says, I say aliens acting as ghosts to play tricks on humans. That is very much a possibility. Or it just could be shadow people. Or interdimensional beings trying to mess with us, just for fun. Who knows? Interdimensional trolls. Who knows, who knows? Anyway, I think this is a good point to end our little stream for today. I hope everybody enjoyed it. And I hope to see you. Hope to see you again tomorrow at noon for our Spooky Story Sunday. We will once again dive into the paranormal and find the spookiest ghost stories and encounters with the paranormal. And well, I guess find out what lies beyond the veil. But don't go anywhere just yet, because as always, we're gonna raid out on Twitch, find a lovely person to share the love with. Let me get the raid message in chat. Please copy the raid message so we can properly share the fluff and the love. And yeah, I'll give the last word to Foxy. Thanks everybody for coming. I'll go ahead and look into who we're gonna raid, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Alright, it's time to say goodnight to our viewers. Let's send them off with some love and encourage them to stick around to join our upcoming raid. Have a wonderful night, and we hope to see you all again soon.
Right, let's see who we can find. Oh, give me back my stream preview. See, we have another podcast here. No, that's not it. If you guys have any suggestion or you would like to raid someone, you can also let me know in chat. Oh, I think I just found someone. Koro is... Oh no, wait. Oh no, that's not it. It's always tricky to find someone to transition into that kind of fits the vibe. Maybe you're currently watching someone. Oh my god, look. Panda is online. That's perfect. We haven't raided Panda in like forever. So let's do that. I think everybody already knows Panda. And if not, you're about to get to know Panda. She's absolutely amazing. So, I'm gonna start the raid. Thanks again everybody for joining the stream. And I'll see you on the other side.